Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. It contains explicit content and discusses sensitive topics such as domestic abuse, sexual assault, and violence, which may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. While we strive for accuracy, we make no warranties about the completeness or reliability of the information, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. If you or someone you know is in danger, please call 911 or contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-799-7233 or text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. We've got your back, besties. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Hey, Bestie Gang, welcome back to this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word. We have Jared, the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect, joining us today. Welcome to Bitch is a Bad Word.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So I found you on Instagram, which is like my obviously part of the job is searching around. And once you just go down one rabbit hole, all these other accounts come up and amazing resources, information arise, and you have an amazing story to tell on Instagram, and you give a lot of like very quick soundbite information that I love because that's sort of like as a busy mom or busy bestie, you're like, I've got 8 seconds to listen to something or figure out what it is, or you're in carpool, you're changing a diaper, whatever it is you're doing. We have just like this limited bandwidth. So you get right to the nitty gritty quickly. So I appreciate that so much. And you're a great resource.
Thank you.
So I want to we were talking a little bit before the show started, and a lot of people, right? We've learned that, I'm doing this show because I'm coming from experience and I want to teach other women and besties how not to make the same mistakes I made. And speaking to you before the show started, you kind of follow a similar path. Why don't you start at the beginning of your story? How did you find yourself in this wizardly place?
That's a good way to put it. I mean, I always call it my sixth sense moment. And I had a sixth sense moment with a woman who was a Brazilian woman that it was bad. I would consider her a female covert narcissist is what she was. And that really devastated me. That was the one that I thought I was going to marry, spend the rest of my life with, because she did the whole routine. She did the love bombing, the future faking, made me feel like no woman had ever made me feel before. And they're good. They're good at blowing your head up and making you think that you're amazing. You're the best thing since sliced bread. And especially as a guy, you're not as used to that a lot of times. It doesn't happen. I think women get more of that on average. They get a lot of compliments. Guys just want something from them. But in terms of the other way around, I was blindsided, but this woman was saying to me, "Oh, you're so attractive. You're so good looking." She took pictures of me for podcast cover art. And from that moment, I was hooked. But I didn't realize it, but she was nowhere near as invested as I was.
Okay, so I love how the first two things you said was love bombing and future faking, because I didn't know what future faking was until I listened to Dr. Romani, and then I was like, holy shit, that's what they do. They like literally completely keep you in this, it's part of their bubble. Like you're not paying attention to the like the red flags that are happening because you're so focused on what's going to happen down the line when and if things change. So explain that a little bit more for our besties, what that looks like.
So the love bombing and future faking would be, she would say things like, "Oh, we can get married one day. We're going to have kids with light eyes," because in Brazil, everyone has dark eyes apparently. So it was interesting that I had light eyes for her. And she was saying all these things that I had just never heard before. And it also helped that I thought she was really beautiful too. But it was just intense. and quick. And she was the one that really made sure she got my attention. And I just wasn't aware of this dynamic at all in a romantic relationship at the time. I was like, oh, this is what a soulmate's supposed to look like. This is the happily ever after that Disney and all the rom-coms were always talking about. Here it is. How lucky am I? And I was like, no, not lucky at all. No, not lucky at all.
Yeah, no, we are done. Like the Disney culture, we got to shut that down for the for the future generations.
It's just not realistic.
Yeah, it's not. Well, and it's but we've been so programmed and indoctrinated to believe that that's what it should look like. So when it finally shows up, it doesn't. It's not the true, like, things are kind of messy reality of life where, everything for them is like picture perfect, and the future is even brighter. So you're in this relationship, and I appreciate you sharing this as like from a male perspective, because it does happen on both sides. But how you're in this relationship, how long were they able to keep this mask on?
It's probably like 6 months. Like 6 months or so is when I started to see some slipping. And at that point, the real worst part about this was it was that intense, that amazing, and then to nothing. It was a very gradual devalue where it wasn't that much she specifically said. She would criticize me for going to Wawa too much, or she would criticize me for little things. But then really the worst part about it was just her vanishing act. So I'm head over heels invested, and then poof, she's gone. And she goes off to California and sees some other guy that she's almost certainly slept with, etc. But I'm in love with her, and she just doesn't care. And like, I would never allow myself to be in that position again. But I was more naive back then. I was just not familiar with their ways. So here I am, heavily invested, thinking I'm going to spend the rest of my life with her, and she could care less, and she just basically ghosted. And that abruptness of that discard, that's what really hurt me. It took me a while to really get over that. And I got over it in waves. It didn't happen right away. And it took a while. It took a while to really recover and to figure out what that was all about. And I think what happens to some people is they think they're in a good place with it, but then it takes them longer, and there's more layers of the onion to unravel, and you realize, oh wow, you realize more of their BS, and you see through more of their toxic behaviors as time goes on. And that was true for me too.
So she's love bombing you. She's making you feel like the most amazing man on the planet, and she's feeding your ego in a certain way. Like, I'm sure all the things, right? And then the future faking, love bombing, and then when you say discard, she discarded you like completely, or she would leave and come back?
She basically discarded without talking to me for weeks at a time, right? She would like, I'm thinking that we're this, and then all of a sudden, just gone. She wouldn't respond, wouldn't answer, like a ghost. But she would eventually come back around months later. Like months later, she would try to hoover again as if nothing has happened. And since I was still in the trauma bond at the time, I was more than happy to have her back, because... And ultimately what I learned from it was I was disrespecting myself. I was doing things that I wish I can go back and do differently. But that's the lessons that I took from it. But when she came back, her presence was everything to me. All it took was for her to be giving me some sort of approval and love, and I thought everything was all better. It's like, and I tolerated all sorts of nonsense and disrespect. Some of it I didn't notice. Some of it I overlooked, because I just wanted her that much. But that's what I did. So when she would come back, I would let her do it. And I'd be like, oh, thank goodness she's back.
What were the things you didn't notice?
What didn't I notice? Mm-hmm. Just the fact that she was not nearly as invested as I was. That she had said these things, but her actions were not congruent with that. Like, she was just blowing my head up. She wasn't doing the things that someone who was truly into you would do. She was also not emotionally safe. And there was other little things too. Like, for example, we would go out drinking, and then the next morning, I'd be like hungover and sick. And she'd see me hungover and sick, And it just didn't even phase her at all. Like you'd think normally someone would be like, "Oh, are you okay?" Or like show some sort of concern or something.
Let me get you a Gatorade.
Something, anything. But she showed nothing. And it was just one of those things where you're like, huh, that's interesting. It's interesting that it just didn't phase her at all. But that's one of many. It's one of many things that, and she has certainly a cruel and sadistic streak. And this one in particular, I mean, other guys have killed themselves over her before. And I know that
Wait,
for a
like
fact.
like
Yeah.
legitimately?
Now, granted,
Holy
she's not the only reason they did, but she absolutely was part of it, right? These guys also struggle with alcoholism and depression, but I know exactly what happened. She came in there, a smoking hot girl, blew their head up, they thought that she was going to be the person they marry probably, and then she pulled the rug. It's like the Louis Capaldi song that they always talk about. Then you pulled the rug. That would always remind me of her, that song. And so this guy, that's what he did. So he committed suicide over her. And the mother of this guy blamed her.
Oh my gosh.
But he just didn't know. He didn't know what he didn't know. What he didn't know.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
You used the term hoovering, so I want to kind of really unpack what that means so somebody understands that what someone's doing to them.
So hoover is when they try to come in contact with you in any way to suck you back in. It's named after the Hoover vacuum cleaner. And it can be as innocuous as trying to like some of your posts on Instagram. And speaking of that, that is all it took too, to keep that connection alive. So in some of her discard phases where I wouldn't hear from her at all, she would still like some of my stuff. She would still like some of my stuff. She wouldn't answer my messages, but she would like some of my stuff. And that was enough to like keep it going. Like, oh, she's still there. It's okay. She's not completely gone. And I look back at myself in that moment now. I'm like, man, I was out of control. How did I even let that happen to myself? But so basically they would come back and it might be as simple as a hello, or sometimes I've heard them try to get flying monkeys to come contact you, or maybe they'll try to see you at work, just anything to try to get their foot back in the door. And sometimes they'll say all of the things that you never heard them say during the relationship, or they'll say the things that you always wanted them to say, but they just didn't. For example, maybe you really wanted them to commit and they didn't. And then they come back in a hoover, well, we'll commit. I promise we'll do this. Or I'll promise I won't cheat. I promise I won't drink. I promise I won't do drugs. Anything. They'll say anything to get their foot in the door, including saying they're sorry. They'll say they're sorry. It doesn't mean they mean it. But they'll say sorry. They'll do anything it takes to get what they want. And what I always say is what they want: power, control, to manage their image, narcissistic supply, and to avoid accountability. If you put all of their behaviors through that lens, they'll make sense. They'll make sense if you put it through that lens. If you don't put it through that lens, that's when people get really confused, because you're like, oh, what's going on here? This person's so irrational. This person's so not being reasonable right now. Why can't they just be a normal person? It's like, well, because they're not a normal person. They want those things. You want to understand them. You want understanding. You want collaboration. That's not what they want. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to accept. They want what they want. You want different things. And they are not like you.
I love that you said normal person, because I feel like I say normal person all the time. And then like, but you really shouldn't have to qualify it like normal person. But we do in this world. You're like finally seeing what a toxic or narcissistic or completely just unhinged person looks like, and when you put it next to a normal person, you're like, okay, now this makes sense. So when you like line it all up, and so this chick is going off and like while she's discarding you, do you think she's out with you think she's out with other men?
I know she was. Well, I didn't know it at the time.
Okay.
But there was a big crescendo after one of her Hoovers. I let her back in. And it turns out that she was a sugar baby for multiple men, older men.
Wait, what's a sugar baby? Like, oh, she takes money from them. They're their sugar daddy.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Other guys were sugar daddies.
Dude, this is not my first day on planet Earth, although it sounds like it is. I was like, what's a sugar baby? I thought it was something
I mean, yeah, the sugar babies are basically the guys that they pay them money, and it's like a soft prostitute, for lack of a better word. And I didn't know that what was going on. And I didn't, because there's little clues in there too I should have picked up on. Things like her traveling, but no one in the pictures with her. Things like her having all this money, even though she didn't work. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. But those are things I just didn't pay attention to.
Did you not want to ask? Like you just kind of didn't want to know the answer, or you were just like, I don't know. I don't want to be rude and like.
I think I had the love goggles on. Like when you have the love goggles on, you fill in the blanks a little bit. If something doesn't make sense, you dismiss it somehow, or you find a way to ignore it because you don't want to ruin it for yourself. Like, I don't want to ruin this. This is great. This is the best thing ever. I don't want to really get to the bottom of it, but like I said, I was careless. I was naive. These are things that I would notice now. But back then, like, what is this? 8 years ago or so? No, I did not notice at all back then.
And how insidious do you think this is?
It depends.
These types of behaviors.
Because some of them, the more grandiose narcissist types, they're more in your face with it. You can sense something. They're bombastic. They're loud. Their narcissistic traits are more in your face. They're grandiose. The covert ones, they're the ones that are really sneaky and insidious. I mean, even therapists, they get fooled by them a lot of times. And I've known therapists, Chelsea Brooke Cole, she's perhaps a guest you'd like to have on here at some point. She wrote a book called If Only I'd Known, and she had dated a grandiose. And then later, she went to dating a covert. And she didn't see it then, because the coverts, they're sneaky. They can mimic empathy. They can mimic care and concern. And those covert traits, they're subtle. They're hidden. Makes it more difficult to detect. And for a lot of women, that's how their narcissism comes out too. It's much more subtle. So it takes people a while to notice more.
Did she ever do like any crazy shit? I mean, all the stuff she's done is not okay. But did she do things like, did you have like blow up fights, or she broke your stuff, or anything like completely
unhinged? Some cruel things she had done. So those are the things that I remember the most is, for example, I was watching a dog for a dog whisperer. That's a whole different story. But it was basically my dog. And then they had to take her to bring her to Missouri. And I was telling her about it. And I'll never forget this. She goes, "Oh, Jared, did you cry? And did you cry?" And like she was like mocking me that the dog had left. And again, I didn't see it at the time. I was like, I didn't think, oh, that's weird. Why would she do that? But that's what she did. But then the worst is that guy I was telling you about that committed suicide. She was telling me about that, and she was laughing about it as she told me. And I was like, oh, that's pretty sadistic of her to be doing that. And because again, that guy.
Oh, you came after. You were after him?
Well, what had happened was the Hoovers and whatnot, they went on for like a year and a half. Like,
oh, geez.
So I was with her for a while, but I didn't really stop being with her for like 18 months. And so that last 6 months to 9 months, she was doing all sorts of crazy stuff with sugar daddies, other dudes, and I don't even know the half of it, but that was one of them. And this guy, and I would say any guy who's listening to this guy was a susceptible guy, right? He had depression, he had alcoholism, and then this girl comes in there trying to make him feel like he's the best thing since sliced bread. He probably thought he was going to marry her. And then she did the same things that she did to me, but his mental health was just a little worse, and it took him out. And so I could see why this guy's mother blamed her, because he was probably telling her, oh, Mom, I met this amazing girl that I think I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. She's awesome. She's Brazilian. She's this. And then she just did the whole routine. The love bomb, devalue, discard. And there was more than he could handle.
That's so tragic.
It's sad.
These are patterns of behaviors, besties, that we are seeing. It's like the same freaking carbon copies. They do whatever dirty playbook they're all sharing underneath, like passing it like underneath the bathroom stall to each other. I don't know what it is, but they operate the same way. So they all have one goal, which is to what?
Well, narcissistic supply. And their version of supply, power, control, their image, and managing their image. Everyone has their fuel. That's one of the variables. So specifically, some narcissists, their fuel is their image and how they look. So they will have their beauty. That would be a somatic narcissist. Other narcissists, their fuel is from intellectual pursuits. They're more of a cerebral narcissist. Others are I'm in the Bugatti and I made millions of dollars. That's their fuel. Others, it's more just sex and women. Or for women, it's a little different. For women, I think they like the attention. The female narcissist, they like the attention, but they also like other things too. They like the other things. Like a lot of them are somatic. They really like their image and like how they look, and they like showing it off. And they like getting attention, admiration, and acknowledgement for how they look. Guys would too, but it's not as cut and dry for the guys. Like they need a little bit more.
I mean, would you say that like human beings all have narcissistic traits, correct?
So that's actually one of my points of contention, because I would say...
I want to know. Because I'm like, well, sometimes I like the way I look. I want to like look nice when I go out, or sometimes, I want to, like, if someone's listening to this and they're like, am I the narcissist? I'm going to tell you, no, you're not. When they tell you you're crazy, it's them. That's the whole thing. But you are always like, whoa, I mean, I like to look hot, or whatever someone's thinking, and then they're like, maybe I'm the problem. So let's hear
this. This is a good one to go over, because I've asked people like Dr. George Simon before. I said to him, is there such thing as a healthy narcissism? And he had said to me, the word narcissism in itself implies an unhealthy relationship with your sense of self-worth. So that's why I don't like when people say everyone has narcissistic traits. I think what people mean is anyone can do toxic behaviors. Anyone can lie. Anyone can cheat. Anyone can be a jerk or an asshole. Yeah, absolutely. But to me, a narcissistic trait, according to the DSM, are things like feelings of grandiosity and superiority, impaired empathy, exploitative, a sense of entitlement, hypersensitivity to criticism, power and fantasy, fantasies of power and delusion. Those are the things that they will want. But I don't think everyone has that. I think some people might think, okay, I have a good sense of self-worth today. But it's different. It's different than the way they would have it. They are out of control. Like they're the best. And they have what they would call an inflated but fragile sense of self-worth. That's why often they're going to be arrogant, bragging, boasting, and they have no problems lying or exaggerating about their accomplishments. It's different. It's different than the normal person that's just feeling themselves one day. To me, that's not a narcissistic trait. That's not, you're feeling yourself. That's fine. It's different when they do it.
Well, and what I'm hearing you say is the criticism is where it's a real red flag, like they can do no wrong. And when you want to point out something just super normal to somebody who's this way, like, hey, the way you did XYZ was like not cool, and they flip the fuck out, and you're like, wait, like, hold on, I was just saying I didn't really like the way you talked to me last night when you were calling me a bitch or whatever. Bad behavior that they exhibit, they cannot take any ownership or accountability.
That's exactly right.
And then they flip it.
Yeah. That's actually one of my clues. I have a video about a simple test for narcissism, but it works because it tests for that hypersensitivity to criticism. So I say to people, if you tell them no, if you disagree with them, or you observe how they act when they don't get their way, or you observe how they act when or how they treat people that can do nothing for them, those will be major clues. Because a lot of the narcissistic people, they're going to lash out, they're going to rage, they're going to flip the script back onto you. They might use a tactic like Darvo, deny, accuse, reverse victim, and offender. Or if it's a covert, maybe they'll give you a silent treatment, or maybe they'll pout, or maybe they'll play the victim, but it's usually going to be something.
So that's a great exercise, besties. Like, flex that no boundary, which we're so not very good at using, which we're trying to learn that word, that there's power in that word.
Absolutely.
So you have somebody who is in a relationship right now who's listening, and they're like, okay, because the other thing that these people like to do is make you the problem. And you respond in a normal, healthy way to some sort of crazy behavior, or some, you ask questions. Or, I mean, most of us, when we look back with like the full scope of vision, you're like, I saw all these red flags. I saw things that they could either excuse really easily, or I was like so into it that I was like, as you said, you kind of ignore it and go, well, it's like a little pink flag. It's like, it's not quite red. And, like, how do you forgive yourself? Or like, how do you, like, while you're in it? So like, I want someone that's listening right now who's like in the relationship with this person. They've let all these things happen. And now they're like, they want to get out. Do you ever feel like did you feel like you were so invested in this person that it was like really hard? Like, you're like, I want my return on my investment, or like, like my emotional investment is so much that I'm like, oh, but maybe if I do things differently, or I behave differently, or I give them more of what they want.
Well, what I see people have is a sunk cost fallacy, where they think I've put in so much emotional labor and time and care and love that they don't want to give it up. Or they don't want to see someone else get the rewards from the things that they think they've done. Like, oh, I've done all this to try to help this person. I don't want this other person to get the rewards of that. But these are some of the things that people say to keep them stuck. But I think in people in those situations, they just didn't know what they didn't know at the time either. But my cue to them would be, there's such a massive difference between someone that you really have a good connection with and someone that's on your team, versus whenever there's an issue, it's you versus them. And they're not going to collaborate with you. They're constantly blaming you for everything. And it's not an emotionally safe environment to disagree in, to have those tough conversations in. It's just not going to happen. But that's the clue. The clue is that's even happening to begin with. Because there's connections out there that it's not going to be like that. And they're rare. I'm not saying great connections are falling from the sky. But when you get it, it's a night and day feeling that it's just all the questions that you had in a toxic relationship or a relationship with a narcissist. You don't have them. You don't have them with the good connection. It's just, okay, I can come to this person, and I can come to this person with anything really. And it's not going to blow up in my face.
That's the thing. It's like, because when you're in a relationship like this and you're walking on eggshells, and if you find yourself having to like rehearse what you're going to say right before, or make sure you didn't say the trigger word, or, whatever that's going to make them just like you're stepping on that like landmine. That's how you know that you're in this really horrible situation that is only going to get worse. Obviously, it's not, you can't change them. There's nothing you can do
right
to make them better. But it's interesting, in the same time that you're about to leave, or when you say you're going to go, they can turn the waterworks on. They're sad. They're sorry. Like, they can become that person that seems normal, and they're like, I know I've just been a horrible asshole to you for the last few days, but now I'm crying, and please, like, I just need this. So your heart reopens. Like, you're like, oh, now they look like the human being that I've been waiting for.
It's like I say, they will love you the most when you have one foot out the door. And it's because they don't want to lose control. A lot of the things that they do that might appear like love is better explained by the fact that they don't want to lose control of you. So when they sense you got one foot out the door, then they'll do those things. The same thing with a Hoover later down the line. They'll say all sorts of things, turn on the waterworks, try to act like they care, but they really just want to get you back under control. And if you make the mistake of believing them or taking them back after a Hoover, I never hear it getting better. Once you've got that pattern, I've never heard someone say to me, yep, they changed their ways, and I'm so glad I took them back. It's like, no, I've never heard that. I've always heard it gets worse. The love bombing is shorter, and the devalue and discard is more brutal. And because they get mad. They get mad and resentful that they even had to be nice to begin with. So they had to they punish you later.
Oh, wow. That's really fascinating. Because, I mean, it would be easier for them, right? If they could just like have everybody on like a conveyor belt and they could get that like that supply really quick, you know, from a different person every single time. But when we live in a real world, so you're with that person, and it's true, like they want from you, they need you to give them that supply just as fast as they always needed it. But then you're a little bit more reluctant, or you're a little bit more depleted. So it takes a lot more effort to build that supply to give them back, right? Like,
I mean, and what happens over time from the same person, the positive attention and positive supply, it doesn't work as well anymore. One of the reasons they'll switch to the devaluing is they'll get more supply from putting you down. They'll get more supply from belittling you, insulting you, and then seeing your emotional reactions. And the bigger your emotional reactions get, the more supply they get. It's called negative supply.
so to them, it's of the same. It doesn't.
Well, they like
negative or positive
supply
feels.
in the beginning. In the beginning, they'll like it, but it just
Okay.
loses its efficacy over time from the same person. One of the reasons why so many of them are so promiscuous and will cheat, because they like positive supply from new people. But
Sure.
from the same person, they get bored of that. Then for that, it's more about the control, having power over you, and then provoking you, and then calling out your reactions, the reactive abuse thing. All of that, that's what you hear all the time happen, right?
The provoking is bananas.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I went through this, and it's come up a million times on this show, but I didn't get what I was in. And it was fascinating that I could be provoked and I could respond. And then the amount of shame and guilt they were able to put on me, like I felt like the worst human being on the planet for the way I responded. Meanwhile, it was not that bad. But they're so good. How are they so good at making you feel like such shit?
Well, two things are going on there simultaneously. One thing I would advise anyone, if you're in a relationship with somebody and you think you got to be a defense lawyer to have a conversation with your partner, that's a problem. Like, you have to build your case, to present the facts and supporting evidence just for them to validate your perception of reality. Just the fact that you even have to think that is a problem. Yeah. That's going down the wrong way. But also what happens is the abusive people, whether it's a narcissist or whatever, they get people to unsubscribe from their own perception of reality. And then when that happens, the victim doesn't trust their gut anymore. They don't trust their intuition anymore. And instead what happens is they become subscribed to the narcissist's perception of reality. Their perception of reality is distorted. But the clues that someone is in that is, like you just said, when they get you to feel that awful about yourself and that guilt and that shame, that's you being subscribed to their perception of reality. How do you know you're subscribed? Because of how you felt after. You believed it. You believed what they were saying because you were subscribed. They got you to unsubscribe from your reality, and now you're more subscribed to what they think and to what they feel more so than yourself. That's another warning sign.
Wow, I've never heard it put that way. That's so fascinating and like such a good description, because that's really what it is. I mean, they will even, you hear people subscribe to their everything that they're putting down, like political views, religious views, how you want to eat, what you don't want to eat, whatever. I mean, is that because it's easier to just go along with it than put up any resistance?
I like that, the French resistance. It depends, it depends, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. But I think when someone really cares about somebody, like usually what happens in a relationship, one person is a little more sure of themselves than the other. Usually. I would say it's rare to have like a really 50-50 of both equally sure of themselves. But one person is usually a little more sure of themselves, and the other person, they subtly, in some cases, they will follow that person's lead. Or in an abusive relationship, not so subtly. It's like night and day. They completely neglect everything they thought and believed in favor of what this other person believes.
And that's if you do the latter, then you're more susceptible to them taking full control and power over. They've actually succeeded. They've taken full power over you.
Well, because they become enmeshed too. That's another thing where the boundaries become blurred. In a healthy relationship, there can be autonomy. You can be two individuals because you can create more. When two autonomous people get together, two independent people, they can create more together than they could apart. But in a toxic relationship, that's not how it is at all. It's more like there's two people that are no longer whole anymore, that are just trying to complete each other. And that becomes a problem. And again, that goes into other territory too. But people who are victims, they have other things they can struggle with. And people, I got to be very careful with how I say it, because that doesn't mean how you were treated was your fault. More than one thing can be true at the same time. Like there can be things you learn from the situation that you should try to work on, but that doesn't mean it was your fault. Because the abusive person, they just want control. They want power, and they see your autonomy and your boundaries. They're a threat to their control. So they want to, I call it bulldozing their boundaries. They want to tear them down so that you are just subscribed to their reality. And then when you're subscribed, you're going to be easier to control and to manipulate.
I had this vision because we were talking about rom-coms when you said, you complete me. And that's like the most iconic line in Save Jerry Maguire. But as I was listening to you talk and as I was playing this replay of that movie in my head, he was the most fucked up toxic guy on the planet. He was not good to her. He literally he used her. He love bombed her. He didn't want to marry her, but he married her anyway. Talked shit about her. Like, wow.
Well, smear campaign in there too. I got to rewatch that movie.
I think we do. I think maybe we should have a watch party together and we could break it all down for our listeners.
I'm down.
That was the romantic love that you thought you wanted. But really, when he said you complete me, she was so broken. She had a single mom. She had, she lived with her sister. And then I really love how you've just described completing someone is not going to make two people that contribute to the relationship or to the world in an extra value way. You're having a half of a half, making maybe even not even a whole half. Trying to make a whole person, you're already behind the 8 ball in this relationship. That's not healthy.
Exactly.
You don't want to complete someone. I really want to just freaking break it down for people. Be your own bitch. Just do it. It's okay we don't need to be swept off our feet, and we keep thinking we need to be. But when we're being swept off our feet, we're they are literally the vision of somebody running away with your life while they're holding you. You're just saying goodbye to the things you knew.
Yeah. I mean, that's their idea of that love is not always healthy. And the Buddhists have a saying, the person who is for you is not going to make you weak at the knees or have your heart race. It's going to be the person that you feel peace and at calm with. And I think that's a good one to remember.
I totally agree. The butterflies are just your body warning you that this person isn't safe. Get the hell out of there. So you talked a little bit about it's not being your fault if you're coming from a situation, we only know what we know, but going a little bit further down the line, in my particular situation, I came from a toxic family and my abuser emulated my close, caretaker's behaviors. So I felt familiar and in their chaos. And it felt like I now know that it wasn't love. Why I was able to stay and kind of handle more, like I could tolerate more bullshit, is because that's how it felt like home.
Well, you heard the expression, if home wasn't a safe place for you, be very careful with people who feel like home.
Never before. I'm gonna write that down. What? We're gonna say that again. Say it again for the besties in the back.
If home wasn't a safe place for you, be very careful with people who feel like home.
Damn, that hits.
Because a lot of times, and this is what happened in my romantic relationship with one, the best thing that happened with it is it woke me up. It woke me up to all of the dynamics in my family. It woke me up to, why did this happen? Well, similar to what you just said. It was all throughout my family. A lot of it was normal. And a lot of people that have a narcissistic parent, they want to seek that person's love in adulthood. And a lot of times the parent you didn't have a good connection with, the parent you wanted the most love from, you're going to seek out a partner that is like that. It's kind of a way to heal that childhood wound in a way. But of course, when you do it that way, it is not going to work. Like, that is not how you heal that wound. That's how you keep it open. But at least for me, it gave me that sixth sense moment, as I call it. And then you can see it. You can see it percolate throughout your family. Like, oh, this person got with this person because they reminded them of their parent. And you see it, and it's like a wild thing to even recognize.
It is all the light bulbs like turning on all at once. And you're seeing just how effed up everything can be.
Absolutely.
And I've heard the things where it's like hurt people. And then like there's the counter thing where it's like, no, that's not really how what are your thoughts on this? Hurt people.
I don't think it's that true. I think it can be true, but it's usually the people that are hurt that don't have self-awareness, that don't have the ability to take a step back, or they just simply don't care. Like, yeah, because there are narcissists that were traumatized as a kid. There are borderlines that were traumatized as a kid, but that's no excuse. Like, being hurt is not an excuse to be abusive. Being hurt is not an excuse to treat others terribly and to use them. And I would be really hesitant if people started saying that as a way to avoid accountability or to minimize how bad something they did was. And you'll see a lot of narcissists do that. Like, oh, I had a terrible childhood. And you'll hear their partners saying, oh, they'll start deering, as what they call it. Defending.
Oh, what's that?
Defending, excusing, explaining, rationalizing. If you do that about their behavior, that's a problem. And
I did that all the time.
And that's the sign that, why am I doing this? Why am I deering in this situation? And one of the things they'll say to themselves is, oh, they had such a terrible childhood. That's why they have these substance issues. And this is why they can't stop cheating or fill in the blank with whatever it is. But honestly, it's BS. Like, that, it doesn't help you being traumatized as a kid. Of course not. It doesn't help anybody. But it doesn't mean it's still not your responsibility to try to do better. That's the bottom line. Okay, those things happened, but if you're aware, now you got to try to do better. If you know better, do better. And if you're not doing better, even after you know better, that's a problem.
That is a problem. Because then, we need to be like, hurt people, help people, or hurt people, heal people. Like, you're like, you're hurt, but you're not going out and making more hurt. You're acknowledging your, past and doing the work and making sure that you don't repeat the same mistakes or continue to do these things. I also have this thought when you were talking about someone hoovering and then they're coming back. So during the hoovering period, you are also you're forgetting everything super quickly of all the shitty things that they did, and then you're like so happy they came back. And is that the most dangerous position to be in? Because you're excusing everything. It's
like Bruce Springsteen said, everyone can have a hungry heart, but it's even more so when you're in an abusive relationship, because if you think they're going to make everything all better, And that's how I thought at the time. I thought, oh, just this person's presence is going to make everything all better. And I didn't see past that. And when you're in that kind of short-term thinking, that's a very vulnerable place to be in. And then other people, I hear them say things like, oh, but no one will love me the way this person did. No one's going to love me or make me feel the way this person did. And I would say to those people, anyone who truly loves you, they're not going to be treating you terribly. They're not going to be making every big conversation feel like a battle or something that you need to prepare like a defense lawyer to even come to the conversation. That's not a good version of love. And I would say to those people, probably time to re-examine what your ideas on love are, if that's what you think it is. Because I would say, where did you get that from? Where did you get that from Disney? Did you get that from Jerry Maguire? Where'd you get it? I don't know. I mean, romance novels? Because I wouldn't say, it might sound good in a book. It might look good on the screen. But in terms of functional in a relationship, what works in a functional relationship? People that can solve problems together. People that can have healthy conflict resolution and can work together as a team. That's what works in a relationship. The other stuff, and this is especially when people are young, sometimes the things that feel the most exciting or might be the most passionate or the hottest sex or whatever it is, that's not necessarily a good sign that it's going to be a good long-term relationship. Like, in fact, it might be the opposite sign. No, it feels that way because it's not good, because it's not something that's meant to be long-term.
I love the thought of, being in a conversation with somebody that you didn't have to prepare. I like that. I like the idea of someone pissing you off and you being able to say, hey, you pissed me off, and it's not going to turn violent or like out of control. And, accountability and just like, I love what you say about it's not going to be firecrackers. It's safe. It's kind of boring. Safe relationships are a little bit kind of boring. Like, you're okay to just, we didn't, like, it didn't end up in like a bloody mess on the floor. Like that, we just had a conversation and we had a conflict and we worked through it. And I think too, it's like you come, from an abusive relationship where what I'm hearing you say is it's going to start one way. It's never going to get better. In fact, the supply that they need is going to be more, and it's going to escalate. They're going to hit you. They're going to it's almost guaranteed. Every single person I've talked to, it all started the same way. I've said it before. I didn't go on the first date with this person and they punched me in the face. And I was like, yeah, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. That's not the way that it goes. So explain the slow burn.
Well, it's very pernicious. So pernicious is gradually, it becomes worse and worse over time. That's the frog in a boiling pot analogy of abuse. I don't know if your audience is aware of it, but if you put a frog in a boiling pot of water, it jumps right out. But if you put a frog in a pot of water and then slowly turn up the heat, it boils to death. And that's the analogy of an abusive relationship. It doesn't happen right away. They're not getting punched on the first date. But maybe weeks to months down the line, maybe there's a jab. Maybe there's some sharp remark. And that's the beginning, right? That's the beginning. And then it just escalates from there. But they also make sure to throw in some intermittent rewards in there too. It's not linear. It doesn't go just love bomb, devalue, discard, hoover, repeat. It's a little more tricky than that, because there'll be love bomb, then a little bit of devalue, a little bit of belittling, but then back to love bombing again, and then a little more devaluing this time for a little longer, and then back to some more good times again. And that's really what tricks people, because it's not all bad and then all good. It's mixed. And I think that also confuses people too, because just because it's not all bad, it doesn't mean it's good, right? Because they're like, oh, there's some good days in there too, which is true. There are some. There can be some good days, but don't let that blind you to the fact that the disrespect and abuse is intolerable no matter what, no matter how infrequent it is. And it's like the expression, people would ask how much abuse is normal in a relationship. And the answer is, abuse in a relationship is like poop in your soup. Even the smallest bit is too much. And so it's one of those things to make you remember.
Yeah, I will remember that forever. Don't poop in soup. Besties. That it's true though. I mean, because we've talked about this before. I used to Google like, is this normal? Like whatever. I did the deering all the time. Oh, they had a bad day at work, or they're when they're just really stressed about whatever, and that's why they behave this way. And my family comes back and tells me the same thing. They're like, oh my God, he would ruin any good time. Like we don't even try to have like a holiday. And then I would be like, well, I mean, you don't understand. What had happened was, and then I go on this whole thing and my family's like, we knew. We were like, this is wrong and messed up. But you excuse it because you need it. You're like, I have seen that like one little glimmer of hope, but they were so amazing. But they weren't, were they? They weren't really amazing. But you remember that little amazing part and you're like, how do I get that back? Because like you said, the time span is less. So you're not seeing that good part anymore as much. And you're like, what do I need to do to myself? How do I need to change? How do I need to morph to get that person to give me that piece of them back? And that's not possible.
I think, and that's something to minimize either, is that they make you feel so good in that love bombing, especially when it's someone that you really think you're going to marry this person. It's the person that you're going to be with forever. And they make you feel so good about yourself. People don't want to let that go. They think, oh, that was that great. And they want to return to that. But what I say to people is, if you have to hope they become more like how they were, or you really want them to change into someone else, that's a problem. Like if you're not happy with who they are right now, that's the problem.
If you're not happy with who you have become either.
Both. Yes, that's a good point too.
So this is harder. Like a lot of my listeners are mamas and they've got babies and it's a freaking brutal nightmare to get out and you can't imagine, and they're going to continue to financially abuse you, litigate abuses, all the abuse.
One more thing I wanted to say to you, though, too. You mentioned about the boring relationships, and I think it might seem boring, a healthy relationship, in comparison to an abusive one, but they can still also be very exciting and fun in a different way, because you totally feel okay just being yourself with somebody. And I don't know if I believe in a soulmate, but if I did, my favorite definition of a soulmate is the person that helps you to become the most you can be and forces you to grow the most as a person, keeping in mind not all growth is comfortable. That is out there where you can get a good connection with somebody and you can really lean in to who you really are. And when you can do that, that's not boring. That's fun. It's a different kind of passion. It's a different kind of, it's a slower burning intensity as opposed to a fast burning abusive candle. And I think a lot of it is compatibility. That's a big thing too, because just because a relationship doesn't work out doesn't always mean it was abuse or a narcissist or whatever. But compatibility, sometimes people just aren't going to get along. Sure. But finding someone you're compatible with, and then you can help each other become the most you can be. You can have those tough conversations. And because the fact that you can be the most you can be, that's what helps you to have those tough conversations. You don't have that tense, nervous energy. You're not afraid of what they're going to think or feel about it. You're just okay. And that's the part that's the magical part. That's the part that's priceless.
It's so true when you can just be like your beautiful mess of a self, and it's like, so it's going back to this like radical acceptance too, like of yourself, but also somebody accepting you for where you are in that moment and in your growth and participating in that. And that's the health, like that is available out there, besties. I promise you it is. And it's like, so when you're in it, you're like, this is all I can see. This is all I deserve. This is all I can I can't, you can't really imagine anything else. And I really love the idea of like sharing this message to the people who like hearing it the first time. If you have to ask the question, if you're in an abusive relationship, the answer is yes. And how do you think that somebody who's in a relationship, so someone who's listening right now, who has just Googled, am I in an abusive relationship? And they're listening to this show, is there a way that they can build like quicker boundaries? Like what's the way that they can start insulating themselves, because we want to help women get out in a safe way. Obviously, if you're in immediate danger, we want you to leave as quickly as possible. But I want to be able to help somebody who like recognizes that they're in a bad relationship, who's ready to leave, but their barrier to exit is like they've got their challenges. How can they protect themselves? Is there a way to start rebuilding your own boundaries while you're still in this relationship?
So
And be totally honest.
That's a complex question, because people are in different places, right? So everyone's starting point is going to be a little bit different. In terms of getting out, I would say making a plan is important, and that depends on how violent the other partner is, because when you try to leave, that is one of the most dangerous times. And so that's why they say make a plan, maybe get friends, family, or even law enforcement involved sometimes, and then have a getaway bag too, in case things get really difficult. In terms of your boundaries, I'm big into mindset stuff. I write affirmations every day. I try to really be mindful of the content I consume and the information I receive. That helps. And reading some self-help books about boundaries, about autonomy. There's a good book from Dr. Townsend I had read, and there's another doctor that's a co-author of it. But one of the things that stuck out for me in that book was he talks about boundaries, and he said anytime you get angry, that's a sign that a boundary is needed. And a boundary is what? Something that we do. It doesn't always mean you have to place a boundary on someone else or even communicate something, but it is something, it's a sign to you, okay, I need to do something different here. I need to maybe not be around this, or if I do need to communicate something, what is it that I need to communicate? But that was a game changer for me, understanding that anger is a sign a boundary is needed.
Wow. Okay. What is that book? I want to put that in our...
It's called Boundaries by Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend, I believe.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely look that up.
It's great. It's a great book. It's probably one of the best books on boundaries I've ever read.
Because that's the thing. I talk to women who come on and share stories that all sound very familiar to my own, where it's like, maybe you hadn't healed yourself from something previous, or maybe you have this, your women are coming in, and I'm not saying that this is the reason why people are getting abused. It's as you move into your next relationship. I just interviewed a woman who had like multiple abusive relationships before she finally, figured it out. But her last relationship ended up with her being strangled and almost killed. So it's like we do have some work. There falls responsibility on us to also do the work as we're growing. Absolutely doing the work. If you've been in an abusive relationship, you need to understand those patterns and recognize them and start building like secure, super safe boundaries. Just unbulldozable, as you were saying.
There you go. I like that. I mean, I think people, they can't hear this enough, but they'll say just because you try to learn something from a relationship and do the work yourself, that doesn't mean it's your fault. So many people, they come at me for saying that. And I say, no, it's just, that's where your power is. Your power is on your side of the street. It doesn't mean it's your fault. It doesn't mean that you deserve to be treated that way in any way. More than one thing can be true at the same time. So I want to emphasize that part there for sure, because a lot of people struggle with that. And then the other thing is, I ask myself this, okay, if I've had multiple toxic relationships with people that are similar, the same person with a different face, I say, okay, the universe, or whatever you believe, maybe God, maybe whatever, it's trying to teach you something. And you haven't learned the lesson yet, whatever it is. Like it's trying to teach you a lesson, and you have to figure out what that lesson is. And again, it doesn't mean if you've been abused, it's your fault, but there is probably something to learn that you need to learn. And maybe it's that you had narcissistic parents. Maybe you were trying to earn their love as a child, and you're recreating that in adulthood. Maybe you're not happy and single. Maybe your boundaries are poor. Maybe you don't respect yourself. That's another thing I've learned, to practice radical self-respect. But there's something that is not going well. And what I want to stress to people is, you can get to a point where, like when I hear clients telling me how they're treated, And they'll tell me multiple things that have happened to them. And I think to myself, wow, if even one of those things happened, I'd be gone, baby, gone. I'd be gone like even in a blink of an eye, because I know now that I just wouldn't tolerate it. So an example I'm thinking of is this guy threatened this girl. I'm going to tell your family you're on drugs. It's like, what? Like, if someone even dreamed of doing that to me, I'd be out so quick. Because what is that? What is that? They're disrespecting you. They're trying to smear you to your friends and family. They're trying to weaponize, and say if you did have a problem with drugs, they're trying to weaponize an issue against you to make you look bad? What? Like, and that's just one example of many examples this person was doing. And I'm like, no. And you can get to that point where you wouldn't even dream of tolerating that stuff anymore, because that's where I am. It's like, no. Because once you, and that's the thing, I think people don't understand what a good connection feels like. They don't understand what safe feels like. So they don't have it as a metric for comparison. Like, oh, this is all I've known. All I've known is this toxicity. It's what I grew up in. It's the old, if home wasn't a safe place for you, be careful with the people who feel like home. That's all they know. And when that's all you know, I fully admit it's more difficult. It's more difficult because you don't know what good is. You don't know what it feels like. So you don't have that metric. But it is possible. And it might take you some time to be on your own too. Like, I think that's a very healthy thing. Like, don't date for 6 months or so. Work on yourself. Develop some hobbies. Work on your same-sex friendships. Work on your goals. Work on your diet. Work on your exercise. All that stuff. All that plays a part too. All of it combines into like who you are. And I fully believe when we're at our best, we're more likely to attract people at their best. If we're not at our best, well, then we're subject to whatever comes along.
I really like the idea of teaching, especially young people who are listening, to say it's okay to say no. Like, it's okay to say no the first time. It's okay to walk away the first time. You could get up from a dinner, get up from drinks, be like, no, I'm leaving. I don't need to be a nice girl and, stay until like while you're doing a little bit of disrespect or the alarm bells are going off. And I think that is such an important message too, to be like, yeah, go be a bitch. Be and protect yourself from these kind of people, because they'll move on really quickly. They're not interested. If you're not an easy target, they're not interested. And that'll be probably another sign. They leave quick. They're not in any way interested in trying to play longer on this game with you.
And I think two things you mentioned there that I think go hand in hand. The power to walk away, that is a superpower. If you can walk away when you get disrespected or even you just think the vibes are off, and you don't need to justify it. You don't need to be the lawyer to justify why you want to walk away. Just the fact that you want to is enough in the beginning of dating. Like, if you just think the vibes are off, walk away.
And you don't owe anybody anything.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, and that's like, because that's the autonomy, right? We don't understand, like, you have to learn that.
Yeah.
If you're not taught that, you have to understand, like, I'm just not doing this.
And that's why it circles back to the family too, because that's often how it was in dysfunctional families. Autonomy was not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable for you to speak your mind or do your own thing, because then you got punished. And that conditioned them to think, yes, I do need to jade all the time, justify, argue, defend, or explain. I do need to defend my thoughts and my actions, because if I don't, I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get criticized. That's why a lot of it starts there. And then the romantic relationships are just an extension of what's already started. And then a big thing also, being happy and single. It's way easier to walk away if you have a fulfilling life just on your own. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't have a fulfilling life on your own and your only source of happiness in life is your partner, well, now, yeah, you are going to be willing to stick it out further. And that's part of my story too. I mentioned that with the Brazilian. That was part of it. I was not happy on my own. I was lonely. I had the old hungry heart. And when you're in that spot, you are susceptible. You are vulnerable, and you're going to be more willing to put up with some BS probably, because I know I was. But if you're good on your own, man, that's another superpower. Walking away, being good on your own, you're unstoppable when you can do that. If you can't do that, then they get roped in, they get stuck, and that's awful. You don't want to be there.
And it's okay to like, because you're not being told this with this Disney culture, it's okay to be a spinstress,
Yeah, do you, right? Own it, whatever it is, right? I think, and if you truly own it, that'll come through. But I think some people could be something, but they're not truly owning it. And when they're not truly owning it, then they're really sensitive to people who say things about things. And I see men and women both do this. It's like, if you're in a good spot with something, someone has a different thought, different view, it's not really going to upset you as much if you're in a good spot. You don't need to prove your opinion or how you're living to everyone who has a different opinion. It's like, no, okay, there's different opinions. I own how I'm doing things. I accept it. And that's good enough. And then the other thing you had me thinking too, I'm glad you mentioned this. I don't consider myself a victim anymore. I don't consider myself a victim. I don't consider myself a survivor. I don't even consider myself a thriver, because I don't see myself in relation to a narcissist or abusive person at all anymore. And that doesn't mean I didn't live through it. I did. But I don't see my life like that anymore. My goals now are completely unrelated to that. Like, I talk about it, of course, and I have a lot of knowledge and experience with it, so I'll share about it. But I won't say you'll never see me saying, oh, I'm a victim, or oh, I'm this, because there comes a point where, no, you probably shouldn't be anymore. It's like, if you're growing on this process, you grow through. And it doesn't mean you stop talking about it, but how you see things change. And I think that's important for people to hear too. It's like, no, you don't always need to be in that spot. You'll move forward. And then maybe you'll think of it more how I see it now or how someone else sees it. And I think it's a beautiful thing, because I don't want to give them that power over me anyway. To think, to see my life always in relation to them, and to see my life in relation to family that try to keep me down. No, I don't need that.
Well, that's exactly what they want. You're giving them more fuel.
Exactly.
Anyway, they're still their supply in some way.
Exactly.
And so that's very true. I think my experience, like what I've been through, and as I've grown from it, I mean, I still live in I have young kids, so it is what it is. But I was thinking the other day, I was like really kind of going through something, and then I was like, thank God this happened, because now I can say, if these certain things had happened that I hoped would happen, then I wouldn't be here sitting on a platform that I have to help. And so I'm so grateful for certain things that didn't go my way. I'm grateful for the experience that, I mean, I'm alive to hear, like to sit and talk about this, and then to see the reach that you have to go, okay, like if I can just help one person leave today, one person who's listening to you has just gained radical acceptance today. Like hell yeah. Like that's so amazing. And then that's my own power. That's helping me. It's serving me to serve others. So I think that's it's very important. And again, I tell everyone, like, if you don't have to put DV survive. I don't put purple hearts on things, because I'm like, I don't need to do that. Like, I'm good. I do hearts, but I don't need them to be purple for you to like know that I love you or I'm here for you. So yeah, I like what you said, just do you, and however that looks. So if you were to give somebody one little bestie tool we could put in their toolkit, if we could give them something to help them on their road to freedom and radical self-acceptance, what would it be?
Well, before I say that, I want to say to you, I know you are going to be okay, because you have the best attitude towards it, that you are actually grateful now for the experience because it made you who you are today, has given you the opportunity to do this podcast and whatever else. People who have that attitude, it's going to be okay for them, because that's the way. That attitude is the way to recovery. It is the way to becoming healed, and you're making the best of the situation, because why not? Why not try to make the best of it once it's already happened? Of course, maybe you prefer it not to, but yeah, once it's happened, make the best of it. And I think that's what you're doing. So that's awesome. Now, my tool would be to not pay. Well, there's so many tools, but one of them is to not pay attention to the labels as much as how they're treating you. I think that's an important one. People get caught up on, oh, is this person a narcissist? Is this person a psychopath, an abuser, a borderline? And to which I say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. How are they treating you? Pay attention to your internal state. Is it safe to disagree? Is it safe to say no? Are they going to blame you for everything? Are you always guilty of something? Those are the things to pay attention to, much more so than their label, because their label doesn't matter. How they're treating you is what matters.
I love that. That is the greatest tool. We are overcomplicating it. Because then you're gonna, if you're listening to this right now and you're Googling shit, you're like, it's not clear enough. Like you have to have the letters behind your name to kind of understand what a true borderline looks like, or what a true, like you can see the glimpses, but again, who gives a shit? Why are we caring? How do you feel? Do you feel good or bad? It's that freaking simple.
Yes.
Let's break it down to like a kindergarten level. When we look at our kids and we're like, did they make you feel bad? Yes. Well, we're not playing with them today. Like,
no, it is that simple though. I mean, we use the word narcissist a lot in the space, and I think it's not a perfect word, but it is helpful just in the fact that it's a word that a lot of people can relate to because they've had similar experiences. People that have been narcissists or they're with narcissists, they've been treated in similar ways. And so it's useful for that reason as a creator. But in terms of your actual person in a relationship, then it doesn't matter at all anymore. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Are you safe in this relationship? Are you in a good place? Do you like who you're becoming? If your daughter or your son or your friend was in the same relationship, would you say thumbs up, or would you tell them to get out of there? Little things like that's what really matters.
And if you have kids, or you want just remember they're watching. So it's like, if you're in a relationship, and I'm done with people being like, oh, with broken family, fuck that, break the family up, break it up. Because your kids are going to continue to think that this is normal and healthy, and they're going to repeat the pattern. And as you said, these are patterns, generational things that need to be broken and understood, and advocacy to say, like, hopefully you don't get into a position. Thank God you didn't marry this Brazilian freaking tornado hurricane disruptor, and you saved yourself a world of like long-term freaking chaos. But like, thank God, right? So then I love that. You're like, I saw it, I walked away, and I'm not repeating those patterns. So I say the same. Like, if you're in a marriage and if you're not feeling good, even before they hit you, because it's gonna escalate. It's okay. You have to walk away, because you have to imagine your child in that relationship. Would you be okay with it? And if the answer is no, and I promise you the answer comes quick. It's not something you usually have to think about. The truth is fast. Lies take, a little bit of time to figure themselves.
Well, they say lies have an expiration date, but the truth is timeless.
Oh, I like that. Dude, you're all sorts of giving all these little amazing sound bites out. So that's great. I love it.
I'm like a Chinese fortune cookie.
Yes. Okay. Well, how can we find you? Where do our besties go and find the Shepherd of Black Sheep?
So on YouTube, I'm the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. The same thing on Instagram. Jared Mello on Facebook. And Revenge of the Black Sheep on TikTok. But those are the platforms that I'm on. And I'm there every day. Every day I'm putting stuff up there.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective and all sorts of things. And we unpacked a bunch of things. And sometimes I love those shows kind of the most, when they're like, wait, and this, and this, and this, and this. And because that's kind of what it feels like when you're in a relationship. So I feel awesome about this episode. And I'd love to have you back on. So we'll definitely have to think about that rewatch, Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I had a great time here. I think the ideas were coming at me left and right, so I have to keep up with them when I'm trying to get them out.
Okay, yeah. Well, send them to me, because I love great collaborations, and I'm down to do most things. So, as long as they're legal. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word. And besties, we got your back. Jared has your back. And I'd like to invite you to my club. There's no initiation fee, but it's the BFF club. And typically, you know, my show's for the ladies. But I'm loving the male. I love the male perspective. I'm not hating on the men. But in my BFF club, the women are the bitches fighting for freedom. And then if I think that, you know, you're worthy of this challenge, and I believe what you can do to help, you're a bro fighting for freedom. So
I like it.
Welcome to the club.
Oh, thank you. I mean, and thanks for having me too.
Absolutely. We will see you very soon. I have a feeling.
I'm down. I'm more than ready to share more.
Okay, besties, remember there's no safety in staying silent, and we've got your back. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word with Jared, the shepherd of black sheep, and just Jared Mello. You're an awesome guy.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Thanks for joining us. Bitches being bad.